How one man led the world into darkness. April 1945. Berlin is no longer a capital, it is a battlefield. Smoke blankets the skyline. Streets that once bustled with life are buried beneath shattered stone and twisted steel. Every distant explosion signals another piece of the city giving way. Deep beneath the ruins, inside a reinforced concrete bunker, Adolf Hitler studies maps of an empire that no longer exists. The red lines marking advancing Allied forces move closer by the hour. Outside, the Third Reich is collapsing. Inside, the man who promised a 1,000-year Reich has only days left. It is one of history's most extraordinary reversals. How did an obscure young man from Austria rise to dominate much of Europe? How did millions place their faith in his promises? And how did that rise end in one of the greatest catastrophes the world has ever witnessed? This is not just the story of one man. It is the story of how fear, economic hardship, propaganda, and unchecked power combined to reshape the 20th century, and the lessons that still matter today. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Long before the crowds, before the uniforms, before the war, Adolf Hitler was simply a young man searching for direction. Born in Braunau am Inn, Austria, in 1889, he dreamed of becoming an artist. But life rarely followed the path he imagined. Twice, he applied to Vienna's Academy of Fine Arts. Twice, he was rejected. The disappointment sent him into years of poverty. He lived in hostels, painted postcards for small amounts of money, and spent countless hours reading newspapers and political literature. Vienna was a city of many cultures and political movements. Nationalism, anti-Semitism, and radical ideologies circulated openly, and Hitler absorbed ideas that would later shape his worldview. At the time, few could have imagined that this struggling young man would one day influence the course of world history. Then, in 1914, everything changed. The First World War swept across Europe. Hitler volunteered to serve in the German army. Like millions of others, he witnessed the devastation of modern warfare. When the fighting ended in 1918, Germany faced military defeat, political upheaval, and severe economic hardship. The years that followed brought hyperinflation, unemployment, and widespread uncertainty. Families watched their savings become worthless almost overnight. Trust in political leaders eroded. In moments like these, simple promises can become extraordinarily persuasive. Hitler recognized that many people were searching for someone who claimed to have answers. He joined a small political movement that would later become known as the Nazi Party. What set him apart was not military brilliance or political experience. It was his ability to speak with confidence to audiences desperate for hope. His speeches grew larger. His supporters became more organized. The Nazi Party promised national renewal while directing blame toward political opponents, Jewish communities, and other minorities. These claims were built on prejudice, conspiracy theories, and falsehoods, but repeated often enough through speeches, newspapers, posters, and radio broadcasts, they reached millions. In 1923, Hitler attempted to seize power by force in Munich. The effort failed. He was arrested and imprisoned. Many believed his political career was over. Instead, prison gave him time to rethink his strategy. He concluded that power could be won through legal institutions and then used to dismantle them from within. During the Great Depression, economic suffering intensified across Germany. Support for extremist parties surged. In January 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed chancellor. Within months, Germany's democratic system was steadily dismantled. Political opponents were imprisoned. Independent newspapers were censored. Trade unions were dissolved. One-party rule replaced democratic debate. Power became concentrated in the hands of the Nazi regime. Control did not depend on force alone. It also depended on persuasion. Propaganda became woven into everyday life. Schools, newspapers, films, radio broadcasts, public rallies. The government worked to shape how people understood the world, encouraging loyalty to the regime while portraying targeted groups as enemies. At the heart of Nazi ideology was a false belief in racial superiority. That belief led to discrimination, exclusion, and eventually systematic violence. Jewish citizens lost their jobs, businesses, and civil rights. Families were separated. Communities that had existed for generations were dismantled. As the regime expanded its control, persecution became organized on an unprecedented scale. During the Holocaust, approximately 6 million Jewish people were murdered. Millions of others, including Roma, disabled people, political prisoners, Soviet prisoners of war, and many others targeted by Nazi policies, also became victims of persecution and mass killing. The Holocaust stands as one of history's greatest crimes against humanity. In September 1939, German forces invaded Poland. The Second World War had begun. Across Europe, country after country fell under Nazi occupation. For a time, Germany appeared unstoppable. Maps changed rapidly. Borders disappeared. Victories accumulated. But military success also encouraged increasingly risky decisions. In 1941, Hitler ordered the invasion of the Soviet Union. The campaign stretched supply lines across vast distances. Harsh winters, determined resistance, and enormous casualties slowed the advance. Then came Stalingrad. The battle lasted months. By its end, an entire German army had surrendered. The balance of the war had changed. From that point forward, Nazi Germany fought a losing battle. By 1945, Allied forces advanced from the west while Soviet troops closed in from the east. Berlin became the final battlefield. The city that had once hosted grand military parades was reduced to ruins. Deep beneath the streets, Hitler remained inside the Führer bunker. Reports from the front grew increasingly grim. The empire he had promised would endure for 1,000 years had lasted only 12. On April 30th, 1945, Adolf Hitler died by suicide. Within days, Berlin surrendered. Shortly afterward, Nazi Germany capitulated, bringing the war in Europe to an end. History's enduring lesson. The consequences of those years cannot be measured by territory alone. Entire cities were destroyed. Families were separated forever. An estimated 60 to 70 million people died during the Second World War. The Holocaust left lasting scars on survivors, descendants, and societies around the world. History remembers Adolf Hitler not as a symbol of strength, but as a warning. His rise demonstrated how economic instability, political polarization, propaganda, prejudice, and the concentration of unchecked power can weaken democratic institutions and enable catastrophic violence. Remembering this history is not about dwelling on the past. It is about understanding the choices, ideas, and circumstances that allowed it to happen. Because history's greatest lessons are not only found in its victories, they are also found in its darkest chapters. The responsibility to learn from them belongs to every generation. What do you think was the single biggest factor that allowed Hitler and the Nazi Party to rise to power? Economic crisis, political instability, propaganda, or something else? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this documentary informative, please subscribe for more in-depth historical documentaries that explore the events and people who shaped our world.